Biblical Leadership Series. Hey there, this is Timothy, and this episode discusses how vulnerability impacts leadership. And I'm going to open up with a story that takes place in the 1990s, before the Affordable Health Care Act was in place, and at a time when the price of health insurance was actually very high, and a lot of people couldn't afford it. I was a senior in high school, and my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she continued for about a year and a half or so. And after I finished my freshman year of college, my mother died from breast cancer. And one of the things that bothered me the most about the whole breast cancer incident had to do with the fact that my mother had to have known that something was wrong with her long before she was actually diagnosed. And I couldn't help but wonder, why did she keep it a secret all this time? So, years later, I teach a Bible study where I'm teaching a women's recovery center. I make a lot of really good friends there. And during this time, I had a varicose vein issue in my legs. I never really shared it with them because I never thought it was going to be anything important. But one time my ankle was hurting, and so I ignored it for a while. But even though I was nursing my ankle, it started getting worse and worse, and I started becoming afraid. And finally, the pain became unbearable. So I rode in my bike over to an urgent care center, and they diagnosed me with a MRSA infection, which is a very, very painful infection. So my varicose veins prevented me from getting healed, which led to an infection. So I had to get treatment for the infection and for my wound and also for my varicose veins. Well, uh, the women that had taken me home, um, whom I had made friends with, one of them got really angry with me because I had kept this a secret from them. I was not sharing with them that I actually had a need in my leg until it got really bad to the point where I couldn't hide it any longer. And I didn't realize until then that I had actually repeated the same mistake my mother had made. My mother kept a secret, and that secret wound up killing her. I kept a secret, and that kept me from getting the help that I need. But when I shared my weaknesses to my friends, it actually gave me access to the help that I needed. Um, the woman who helped me pick me up from the urgent care that day, um, they actually continued to help me get to and from the doctors so that I could get the care that I needed to get better. And so that brings me to the main point here, and that is vulnerability helps build trust and it creates opportunities where other people can help you. And this is how it impacts leadership because leadership is ultimately based on trust. The Bible quote that I have here comes from 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, the New Living Translation. And God is speaking here. He says, "My grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness." I want you to think about that last part. My power works best in weakness. God's power works best in our weaknesses. Paul had a weakness, and we don't know exactly what it was, but it was probably poor eyesight. He may have even been disabled. We don't know. But he prayed for God to take that weakness away. And God actually said, "No, I'm not going to heal you." And this is pretty incredible because Paul was used to working miracles. This is the guy who people would come over and take his napkins or sweatbands or whatever it was that had been just touching Paul's body. They would drag it to another city and give that to someone who was sick, and it would heal them. But God chose not to heal Paul. And it reveals to us that God's strength is revealed in our limitations and in our weaknesses. Acknowledging our vulnerabilities helps us establish real connections with other people. And if I want to think about it a little bit further, um, and go back to my upbringing, I did not come from a home that was used to being very vulnerable. My father rarely talked about his own feelings, and he definitely hated the thought of appearing weak in front of others. And my mother did not want to share her feelings with people outside the family, largely because she was afraid that people might gossip. Okay? So if I shared my feelings as a kid uh, in that household, I would could sometimes be berated for that, you know. Um, and I also grew up with a little bit of a distrustful nature, and that's something that I'm still trying to overcome too. But the important thing to keep in mind is that when I hid my weaknesses, I cut my friends off from helping me. When I revealed my weaknesses, I opened myself up to my friend's help. And so that should lead us to understand that an open life, life characterized by sharing, is better than a closed life. Terry Pierce says about building trust, you must be willing to be known, to reveal your personal motivations. If we want people to trust us with leadership, we need for them to know, where are we headed? What direction are we going? You know, Causes and Posner say psychologists find that individuals who are capable of trusting people are happier and more psychologically adjusted than those who view the world with suspicion and distrust. Trusting individuals are liked more by their peers and often sought out as friends. Causes and Posner also say that trust is a reciprocal process. Build trust and respect by giving trust and respect. Now, the real challenge for us is the fear that if we are vulnerable to people, that they will take advantage of it. And guess what? There are some people out in the world that will take advantage of us if we are vulnerable. Those are usually not good people to be vulnerable with. But most people are not like that. Most people will not take advantage of us if we are vulnerable with them. They will actually begin trusting us more because we have shown them that we trust them more. Um, the real challenge, though, isn't the people who abuse vulnerability. The real challenge for us is the fear that if we are vulnerable to some people, some of them will probably take advantage. And the truth of the matter is that's probably true. There are some that will. But a trustworthy leader uses open communication. They don't hide themselves. You can't really lead a group of people from inside your closet. You have to be known. You have to be seen, be visible. Um, so Um, I did also want to emphasize that there is good news for people who don't like to be vulnerable, for people who may be distrustful, for people who call themselves introverts, like myself. I'm like a class A introvert, okay? And I was one who did not like to say words like, I love you to people, even if it was true. Even if it was somebody in my family. Um, I especially had a hard time saying I love you to my dad. The first time I ever told my dad I love you, I was in my 30s, you know. But I really wanted to have a relationship with my dad. It was really important to me. So I decided to practice saying I love you to my dad. So I'd call my dad up on the phone, we'd talk for a short time, and I said to him at the end, I love you, Dad. And my dad was surprised. And he gruffed something, I don't remember what it was, and ended the phone conversation. Um, The second time I called up my dad, I said, I love you. My dad said, okay. And that ended the phone conversation right there. He really did not want to be vulnerable with me. And so the third time I call my dad, I say, I love you, Dad. And finally, at the end of the call, my dad said, I love you too. And my dad had loved me all along, but he was afraid of showing it. He was afraid of being vulnerable. And I probably was just as afraid of being vulnerable as he was. But the conclusion that I want to bring here is that vulnerability builds trust. It creates opportunities for other people to help you. A lack of vulnerability creates distrust. It stops friendships from developing. People will take advantage of you if you are open, but you really can't let that stop you from letting people in because you'll miss out on so much more. Even people who are heavy introverts like myself can learn to be more open, and they can do it by saying a few simple words like, I love you, or I care about you, or you're important to me. So I just want to leave you with those thoughts and to encourage you to practice vulnerability in leadership today. Bye. Check out other episodes in this series and other great series.